हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ओम भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इंद्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste friends. Param Vedanta wishes you all a very happy Diwali. May the light of knowledge remove the darkness of ignorance and may you recognize your ultimate freedom. We are in the last but one session of chapter 3, Advaita Prakaranam. Gaudapada Acharya of the has written the Mandukya Karikas and is given the finest explanations of the Shruti. There are so many bhashyams upon bhashyams written on these Karikas. In today's Karikas, the hurdles that come during meditation, during Nididhyasanam are mentioned. We look forward to listening to the solutions for these obstacles. Dr. Hegre is moderating the session and will also be recapping the last week's session. Over to you, sir.
Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Very rarely I get this privilege of doing a recap of all the Karikas that we studied in the last class. The 5 Karikas that we studied in the last class are perhaps one of the most beautiful Karikas, and this is how everybody who gets to present these Karikas feel, that I'm so lucky to get this set of verses or this particular verse, because whenever you study them in detail, you will see the very special beauty on this Karikas, and it is my privilege to be able to share the essence of these 5 Karikas that we have studied in the last class. This topic is very much like the Sthita Prajna Ka Bhasha portion. Now, Arjuna was interested to know, once a person gets spiritual knowledge, how does he see himself? How does he see himself? Atmanevatmana tushtaha. He sees himself as complete. How does he see others? Now, that is going to be the topic. The first Karika goes like this. Now, as I said, the construction of these Karikas are difficult, but this particular Karika is so beautiful, it is worth remembering. I'll read the words. Ajam, Anidram. Now, each word is important. Each word describes a Sthita Prajna, how a Sthita Prajna sees himself, and how it affects, how once you get the spiritual knowledge, how you see yourself and your own world. So it goes like this. Ajam anidram aswapnam anamakam arupakam sakrid vibhatam sarvagnam nopachara katachana. Let us know each word of this particular Karika. Ajam, that means no gross body, because what is born is the gross body. Anidram, that means no causal body. Aswapnam, no subtle body. The ijasa is not there. Anamakam arupakam. I have no form. Swamiji always says the greatest transformation that you can is to transcending form. Because of my body and identification with the body, I have a sense of limitations. So arupa, I know I have no form. I have no name. This body has identified with a particular name, but I as Turiya, I am ajam, aswapnam, anidram, anamakam, arupakam. And another beautiful word, sakrid vibhatam. That means I am of the nature of true consciousness. Now, to know anything, you have to see around. But to know that you are, to know I am, that knowledge is Sakrit Vibhatam. I know that I am. In every experience, Pratibodha Viditam, in every experience, I know I am. Sarvagnyam. Adi Shankara has given a very beautiful meaning, a derivative for Sarvagnyam. Normally, Sarvagnyam means all knowing, but Turyam cannot know everything. But Turyam means it is of the nature of conscious existence. Turyam is of the nature of consciousness here and existence. Existence outside is the Jada Prapancha. So Sarvagnyam means everything, both consciousness and existence. Just like the word Vasate. Vasate means existence, Deva, consciousness. Sarvagnyam here is the same as Vasudeva. Naupachara katachana. For a person who becomes a Turyam, there is nothing to do, there is nowhere to go. You will remember when we studied the seventh Panchadashi, seventh chapter, Atmanam Ched Vijaniyat Ayam Asmiti Purusha. Once a person knows his true nature, Kim Ichan Kasya Kamaya Shariram. What is there to struggle with this body once you know your true nature? This is the beautiful Karika number 36. We go to Karika number 37. Once you go to Karika 37, that is another beautiful Karika which says Sarva Abhilapa Vigataha Sarva Chinta Samuttitaha. That means once a person knows his true nature, he realizes that there is no organs of reception, there is no mind. Therefore, because there is no mind, there is no experience of the world, or the world is now negated and it is only Nama Rupa. The entire creation has resolved. For such a person, it has come to a state of Prapancho Pashamam. Then there is one beautiful word called Samadhi. Adi. Adi means the substratum on which everything is superimposed. Now I attain to a state of Samadhi, or the Turyam is that on which everything is based. Samadhi also refers to a mind that is fully focused, a mind that has become completely purified. These are the two meanings of the word Samadhi given in the Bhashyam by Adi Shankara. We go to the third Karika. Once a person attains to Mano Nigraha, Mano Nasha, and comes to Amani Bhava, the mind now becomes a mirror. The mind does not absorb anything. The mind does not retain anything. There is nothing to grasp. There is nothing to retain. And what is such a mind? Once a person reaches Amani Bhava, then the mind becomes a mirror. Atma Samstam Tata Jnanam. Atma Samstam means the mind attains to a state of Samatvam, to a state of Purnam. Ajati Samatam Gatam. You will remember this is the promise made in the second Karika. Right in the second Karika, Gaudapadacharya says, Ataha Vakshyami Akarpanyam Ajati Samatam Gatam. I will teach you. Please be with me. I will teach you about your true nature, which is Ajati Samatam Gatam. Yatana Jayate Kinchit Jayamana Samantata. Although nothing has come out of Turyam, it looks like everything has come out of Turyam. Ultimately, a normal mind, that means, Mana Eva Manushyanam Karana Bandha Mokshay. We know that my mind can be the cause of all my problems if it is not trained, and the same mind can be the cause of my freedom. An ordinary mind, that means when you wake up, the mind wakes up and the Parabrahma Paramatma now becomes dispersed. That original white light becomes this whole world of multiplicity. On the other hand, a mind that is Amani Bhavaha, a mind that has become a mirror, now develops what is called total internal reflection. The mind now becomes a mirror. This is what Buddha calls Yatha Bhutam. to see the world, to see people as they are, but without any form of prejudices in the mind, because now the mind is able to reflect things as they are. Then we come to Karika number 13, which speaks of Asparsha Yogo Vainama. Now, Gaudapadacharya gives a new name for Turiya Brahmajnanam as Asparsha Yoga. That state where you attain to Asangatva. When you realize you are Turiya, you are of a higher order, everything is of a lower order. And when you wake up from your dream, all your dream objects, you are asangoham. I have no relationship with them. And therefore, asparsha yogo, they cannot really touch me. I am untouchable by anything that happens in the world. Durdarsha sarva yogi bihi. Now, this condition is not easy. It is extremely difficult. Although it is very difficult, Gaudapadacharya says, it is difficult, but tell yourself it is possible. Why is it difficult? Because normally all of us feel secure in our attachments to our family, our gross body, subtle body, and causal body. But a person who comes to Asparsha Yoga, he moves away from the gross body, subtle body, causal body, and unites, becomes the Chin Mudra, becomes one. Now, such a condition is a frightening state for an ordinary person, but actually, he unites with that which is abhayam, that which is you attain to a state of fearlessness. And finally, we come to Karika number 40. Manasaha nigrahayattam. Now, when you are able to control your mind, what is the benefit? Such a yogi attains to a state of fearlessness. Abhayam sarva yogina. Dukkha kshaya. All the sorrow disappears. Prabodhascha. You wake up. You now have uttishtata jagrata. You have a spiritual awakening. Be also then akshaya shanti. That peace that you have is permanent. It is not something that is impermanent. So this is the verse, manaso nigraha yattam. Once you attain to that state of control of your mind, sarva yoginam, all the yogis strive for this state where there is abhayam, where a person is fearless. Nothing can cause insecurity or fear. Dukkha kshaya, all my sorrow has disappeared. Prabodhascha, that means there is a spiritual awakening. And finally, akshaya shanti, imperishable amount of peace. There is your peace will be there for all the time. With that, we have concluded the recap of the verses of the last class. Now, before we start today's Karikas from 41 to 44, I will give you a small introduction like I normally do before every class. Dear friends, we have come to the end of the study of the Mandukya Karika. Why am I saying the end? Because we still have 4 Karikas left. 4 Karikas in this class, 4 Karikas in the next class. And then we have one more chapter with 100 Karikas that is called the Alata Shanti Prakarana. We will study all of them very quickly. But Alata Shanti is a kind of a summary of something that we have already studied. But at this stage, let us look at why do we attend all these classes? What is the benefit? What is the prayojan? What is the end point that we need to look of? Let us be clear about that, because once the goal is very clear, the means also becomes very clear. Our goal is to be a state of a Jivan Muktaha. Now, there are 2 very related conditions. One is called spiritual awakening, which is called Jnana Nishta. The other is called Jivan Muktaha. Now, is there a difference between the 2? Yes, there is a small shade of difference. Once you get spiritual knowledge, and to some extent, all of us have got spiritual knowledge. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, through Shravanam and Mananam, I have got doubt-free knowledge. That knowledge we all have. But do we have Jnana Nishta? What is Jnana Nishta? Jnana Nishta means that knowledge has become so clear to me that whenever I interact with the world, which is very upsetting and very disturbing, I am not disturbed. Or even if I am disturbed, I'm able to recover very quickly because now I know I don't belong to this world. I am Turiya, just like a person has woken up from his dream. Such is a condition of a Jnana Nishta who looks at his dream events as you see events on a screen in a movie, very disturbing, but we know that they are all mithya and are of a lower order of reality. And that is a state of a Jnana Nishta. That means a person is spiritually awakened to his true nature. He is established in his true nature. How does he differ from a Jivan Mukta? Now, such a person still has a mind, still has a body. The body has its limitations, the mind has its limitations. The mind has got a lot of vasanas, and therefore, because of the vasanas, even though a person is spiritually a jnana nishta, you can sometimes see him to be so ordinary because of his vasanas. However, a same person after a certain period of time attains to a state of jivan mukta or a sthita prajna. The mind can no longer be unaffected by the jnanam which is there in the mind. So after some time, adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha tulya nindastu stira mauni santushto ena kenachit. Now this is a state of a jivan mukta. So this is our goal. Our first goal is to attain to a state of jnana nishta. And gradually, what later on happens is a state of Jivan Mukta. Is our goal clear? If our goal is clear, now let us understand our problems. Now, so many of us have started the study of Vedanta over so many years. The teacher is the same, the subject matter is the same. Some students have got tremendous amount of benefits. Some students have not got same amount of benefits. Now, can we analyze why some people get more benefits, some people gets, is the teacher partial to some, is God partial to some people? The answer is given in one of the Karikas, Karika number 16 in Advaita Prakaranam. And the answer says Ashrama Trivida Hina Madhyama Utkrishta. What do you mean by that? He says Vedantic students can be classified as Hina Madhyama Utkrishta or Manda, Madhyama, and Uttama. Now, once let us know whether we come into the category of Manda or Madhyama or Uttama. How do we know where we belong? Now, who is the Manda? A Manda is a person whose sadhana chatustaya sampanna is less than pass marks. Now, normally in all our examinations, we give some 35% or 40 marks as pass marks. Now, a Manda person has got some amount of viveka, some amount of vairagya, but it is not enough. Such a person, because his friends come to a Vedanta class, he or she will persist with this class for some time. After some time, they say, this is a little too dry, it is too boring, it is very hard. And then they automatically drop off because qualifications are not adequate. So these are the Manda category of people. Then there's another category of people who've got Madhyama. They have got more than pass marks. That means they have got more than 40. And if you will see, 99.9% of us come under this Madhyama category who have got sufficient amount of Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam is there, Shama, Adi, Shakta, Sampati, those 6 jewels that is important for a student. We have, maybe 40%, 50%, 60% or that, but we don't have the distinction level. The distinction level comes in the Uttama category. Now, for example, an Adi Shankara, a Hasta Malakiya. Now, even in our medical practice, we will see all of us join the program, but then one student among us will be a genius. He's an absolute genius. He's such a genius that he's a threat to the teachers also. The teachers feel uncomfortable when a person is such a genius among the students. Like imagine Adi Shankara in his Gurukula. what a spiritual genius he would have been. They come under the Uttama category. They have sadhana chatustaya more than 80%, distinction level. The teacher just has to give a little amount of teaching and they are able to understand. Now, this is the Uttama category. And these are spiritual geniuses. There are rare people. And let us see a little more about what sadhana such people do. Now, a Manda person, because he has no qualifications or very less qualifications, does not benefit from all these classes. So by coming for all these spiritual classes, the person does not have any benefit whatsoever. Now, what happens to all of us? Most of us are in the Madhyama category because we have sufficient amount of qualifications. We get jnanam, but we continue to be samsari. This is the problem. You will understand, I know all that. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, not only I know, I can teach that with great confidence. But when it comes to problems in my real life, when it comes to my problems in my family life or professional life, I can be as samsari as anybody else, and I can suffer and complain and wonder why life is so unfair. Why me? This is the Madhyama category. The Uttama category or the spiritual genius not only gets jnanam, gets the benefit of jnanam. That means such a person is a jnana nishta. You can see such a person as an awakened person or even a jivan mukta. Now let us see what each category of persons should do. A manda person who lacks basic qualifications needs to get these qualifications. And what is the sadhana such a person? Karma yoga and upasana yoga. By doing karma yoga, that means whatever we have to do every day, do it as Ishwara Arpana Bhava, Ishwara Prasada Bhava. And by doing Karma Yoga, you will get these three qualifications. What are the three qualifications? Viveka, Vairagya, Mumukshutvam comes. And then by doing various forms of Upasana, Mantra Japa, daily forms of Sri Rama, Jaya Rama, Omkara Upasana. When you do these Upasana, then these 6 jewels, Shama, Adi, Shakta, Sampatti, Shama, Dama, Uparama, Titiksha, Samadhana, Shraddha, all this will come when you do Japa Sadhana. So the person will get 35%, 40%, and now becomes eligible. Such a person suddenly becomes interested, then he wants to present, he wants to do more and more, and such a person comes into the Madhyama category. Now, what sadhana does a Madhyama category person? Certain amount of qualifications are already there. For all of us, we don't have to do more of Karma Yoga, more of Upasana. You can do that, but basic qualification is there. Now, that is the topic for today. We have come to the topic of Nidityasanam. That means spiritual knowledge is there. I have added enough sweeteners to my drink, but what I have not done, I have not stirred it. It has not gone into every part of my body, every cell of my drink. And what we need to do is stir that knowledge, and that knowledge is called Nidityasanam. What does the Uttama person have to do? No sadhana. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Such a person is a spiritual genius. He has got not only jnanam, a person has got a jnana nishta also. Now, as today's class is Nidityasanam, what does it mean? It will be told in all the Karikas today. Mentally dwelling on the Vedantic teaching, Jivatma, Parama, all the Mahavakyas should be done. So repeatedly study, how intensely, with great determination, with perseverance, repeated listening, repeated reading, reading the transcripts, discussing among students, teaching others. So nicely said it, Tat Chintanam, all the time thinking about that only. Tad katanam, whatever you speak, that only. Anyon tad prabodhanam, whenever you get an opportunity, teach each other. Etad dekam paratvam cha brahmabhyas viduhu buddhaha. Wise people say, this is what is called nidityasanam. With this background, let us go to the Karikas for today. The first Karika will be explained by Dr. Chandrakala. Dr. Chandrakala, please.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In this verse, difficulty of mind control has been explained with an apt simile. Next slide, sir. We know that There are involuntary thoughts keep happening continuously to both Gnani and Agnani. This is natural. We say it is abnormal if these thoughts refuse to vacate from mind on our request, when thoughts take mind as hostage. So, what is the difficulty in controlling the mind? Is relentless effort alone is sufficient means to conquer the mind? These questions come up. When all factors governing the behavior of mind are taken into account, it appears to be next to impossible. Coming to the verse 3.41, first one, sir. Yeah. Utseka udadye yadvata kusha agrena eka binduna manaso nigraha tadvata bhavet apari kedataha. In line 1 and 2, the important word is utseka udadi. That is, controlling the mind is like trying to empty the ocean drop by drop with a blade of grass. It is as good as saying, why bother even trying? An important word in 3 and 4th line is aparikedataha, that is relentless effort. We have seen or heard from stories that yogis performing severe austerities to subdue their mind. Some of these practices would scare away the modern world seekers. They are standing on one leg in sun, or standing hip deep in icy waters of Ganges, or doing rigorous fasting, or long hours of meditation, or treading barefooted along stony pathway for a long distance, and so on. All these indicate the extent that seekers are willing to go in order to gain mastery over their mind. This slide is okay, sir. In this verse, Gaudapadacharya openly acknowledges that thought discipline is very difficult, but not totally impossible. It requires long effort like emptying the ocean drop by drop using a blade of grass. It is difficult. Next slide, sir. Handling the mind should also be practiced relentlessly without getting frustrated. One should be ready for failure again and again. Mind generates lot of thoughts and our task is to weed out useless ones. Commentators write a story relating to this. A bird wished to empty the ocean to retrieve its egg that went under the waters of ocean. The bird did this continuously and sincerely. Then Garuda Bhagavan came to help and drive the ocean by flapping his huge wings. So, if a person is sincere, there will be help from Bhagavan also in practice of disciplining the thoughts. In chapter 6.24 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, next slide, sir. Lord Krishna says, Sa nischayena yoktavyo yogo nirvinna chetasa. A mind that does not become defeatist and negative is very much needed for mind discipline. So, the meaning of this verse is just as emptying of an ocean drop by drop with the tip of a blade of grass is possible only with perseverance, so also the disciplining of the mind is attainable only with perseverance. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chandrakala, for a very nice explanation of a very beautiful example where Gaudapadacharya says, what kind of mental toughness is required to get Amani Bhava, to get Mana Eva Manushyanam Karana Bandha Moksha. See, the mind is the cause of all my problems, so therefore I have to work on my mind. And how do I work on my mind? Being as mentally strong as possible. Mentally strong means if I have to attain to Parama Purushartha, I will do whatever is required. Example given, if you are given an ocean and you are given a tip of the kusha grass, that is to empty an ocean with that tip of a kusha grass, how much effort it takes. Now, Dr. Chandrakala gave a beautiful story of a particular bird who laid its eggs on the seashore and the ocean came and took it away during high tide. Now the bird was absolutely determined to get the eggs back and was taking one drop of water and tried to empty the ocean. Now that was the mother's drive to find the eggs. And seeing the persistence, see, when you have a project which is looking extremely difficult, I have to attain to Parama Purushartha, and there will be roadblocks. But if that determination is there, once you put a certain amount of prayatnam, what happens? There will be obstacles. That is why we pray to Lord Ganesha, Vigna Nivar, remove all the obstacles, please. Because whenever you're doing any project, obstacles will come. But if you persist on, there is something called the law of grace. Garuda Devata will come, and flapping its big words, the ocean was threatened. It said the ocean itself retrieved and returned the eggs to that bird. So this becomes possible not only by myself, but my determination should be there. And if I have that single point determination that I'm going to work for it, there is something called the law of grace. The law of grace means the impossible becomes possible. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayati girim. Yat kripa tamaham vande paramanandam madhavam. The next two Karikas, Dr. Ashwini, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. As we are nearing the last topic of Advaita Prakarana, it mainly talks about Mano Nigraha, the thought management. If one does not know how to handle the involuntary thoughts, it can easily hijack the mind. Now, Mano Nigraha is learning to retrieve the mind from involuntary thoughts on our command. Gaudapadacharya, or the Nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam is what is prescribed for Mano Nigraha. And we have been discussing this elaborately in both our Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita classes. So, two types mainly, the Nididhyasanam. One is Brahma Abhyasa Rupa, another one is Samadhi Abhyasa Rupa. Now, the Brahma Abhyasa Rupa, it is keeping the knowledge in the background during my daily transaction. This is the most difficult one. Usually we get lost in the transaction. And the second one is Samadhi Abhyasa Rupa. It's more like an auto-suggestion and then an introspection meditation where we dwell on the teaching, I am Satyam and world is Mithya. Now, this Mano Nigraha Abhyasa, it is not having control over the body, mind, family or possessions, but to accept the Mithya world as it is and to reiterate on the greatest blessing that we are not affected by anything that happens in the Mithya world. Next slide, sir. With this background, we will look into the verses 42 and 43. 42 goes like this. Upayena nigrihniya dvikshiptam kama bhogayoho suprasannam laye chaiva yatha kamu layastatha. The word meaning is very important. Upayena nigrihniya. It's like by proper means one should discipline the mind. Vikshiptam kama bhogayoho, from all the distractions due to enjoyment of desires. Suprasannam laye chaiva. Laya is also called as slumberness, and even with the pleasure of slumber. Yatha kama layahtata, because the sleep is also as bad as a desire. Now in the slide, you can look at the four pictures. One is Vikshepa, which depicts distraction of the mind. Laya, sleep or torpidity, usually in the meditative phase. Kashaya, which is, the latent desires. And the fourth one is Rasa Swada. It's like, it's a enjoyment. It's a sattvic enjoyment. We will look into it. Now, what are this? These are considered to be dhyana pratibandhas. Now, here in this stotra, it explains the proper means of mind control. In the next slide, sir. Now, in our Vedic literature, Vedantic literature, these are the four obstacles which has been identified as pratibandhas for the mind control. Now, we have to look into it so that we are not distracted by any of this. Now, the first one is Vikshepa, that is a distraction. What is this distraction? It is resting of the mental state on the things other than the absolute, such as sensual objects of pleasure. Now it's mostly the wandering mind or highly active mind. It's mostly because of the rise in the Rajoguna. Now the second one is Laya. Laya is either going into the sleep or torpidity. It's lapse of mental state into sleep. failure to rest it on the absolute, mind going into sleep, maybe because of the tamoguna, rise in the tamoguna. The third one is kashaya, latent vasanas or desires. It is very important. It's a dormant presence of the hidden impressions from the past. It's an unmanifest, okay, and it's because of the hidden raga and dvesha in the subconscious mind, and it results in stagnation of the mind. The fourth one is rasaswada. Now, this is the experiential ananda that one can get lost in due to meditation. Now, the tranquility or the reflected bliss, it overpowers the mind. And why is it bad? Because then the mind can be unavailable for the Vedantic meditation. That's why I said this is more like a sattvic enjoyment. You always are in this tranquil or the bliss feeling. Now, why? Why are these obstacles, especially the rasaswada? Why should it be an obstacle? Now, the Gaudapadacharya says one has to transcend these four obstacles. Now, the first one in the line is vikshepa. We will just look into it. The wandering mind. How do we always get carried away? The mind gets carried away into some pleasures and lost in its objects of the attachments. Mind needs to be withdrawn using appropriate methods. Now, we will discuss this from the next verse onwards. Similarly, even the laya, even the sleeping mind also gets as difficult as a distracted mind caused by the desire. Hence, upayaha, proper methods for the mental discipline have to be adopted. Now, if we understand desire is rajasic, sleep is tamasic, sleep is grosser than desire, so obviously it makes it more difficult to eradicate, and it's even dangerous too. So at least desire you can reroute from gross to higher and the subtler levels, but sleep cannot be similarly graded. So it needs to be completely eradicated too. So in the next verse, from this verse onwards, that is the 43rd verse onwards, we see the methods prescribed by Gaudapadacharya, for the same. So the verse goes like this. It is Dukkham Sarva Anusmritya, keeping in mind that everything is full of sorrow. Now the teaching starts. Kama Bhoga Nivartayet. So kindly withdraw the mind from enjoyment of desire. Ajam Sarvam Anusmritya, remembering ever the birthless in everything. Jatam na evadu pashyati. One does not surely perceive the born. Now here it's what is the duality. So what is it? It's constantly remembering that everything is a source of sorrow. One should turn away the mind from the object of desire. Then constantly remembering that everything is unborn, that is Brahman. One should never see anything which is seemingly born. The next slide, sir. Now here, Gaudapadacharya again handles this Vikshepa, giving us two methods. One is for the Upasaka, one who does Upasana, and then the Nididhyasana Karta, or, giving the importance of Nididhyasana. Now, what is Upasana? We've all known, of course, this is before studying the Vedanta, and then Sir has already given the introduction. Nididhyasana is after studying the Vedanta, and how do we apply that? Now, during the Upasana, so what happens is when some sense pleasures or when sense pleasures are distracting through the temptations, may one meditate upon the problems that are caused by them. The pleasures caused by the every worldly object, there are three things, is always mixed with sorrow. It does not produce lasting contentment, and also it creates bondage. So kindly to reinforce it again, it is mixed with sorrow, does not produce lasting contentment, and it creates bondage. Every object in the world, every object in the world is mixed with equal amount of pain. The intensity of pain given by any object is proportional to the intensity of the pleasure that it gives. Now one has to remember this defect of the sense objects and turn the mind away from the sensory addiction. Let us remind ourselves not to hold on to these and completely hand over it to Bhagavan, repeatedly educating the mind to detach from worldly things and worldly beings. Now, the root cause of vikshiptam is kama or the desire. Now, it distracts us from our spiritual goal. We should remember that fulfilling the cravings leads only to a greater cravings. So, remembering and reminding the mind to see the harm being done by indulgence helps it to wean off the desires. Now, meditation helps and it should continue in spite of failures. The abhyasa helps in vairagya. Then, now during the nididhyasanam, what do we need to remind? We need to remind and remember that everything is Brahman. The entire world is only the appearance, and one should never hold on to the apparent world, which may lead to suffering. Repeatedly remembering the mithyatvam of the world, and why should we fall in love with, a shadow? Once we see Brahman with different nama and rupa in everything, it helps in detaching the mind. Mind does not wander when it starts to detach from the worldly things. To give reality to Brahman and falsity to everything else helps in dilution of the raga dvesha, and may one practice this to get out of the vikshepa. Hence, remembering the sorrow associated with the desire and realizing the reality associated only with Brahman helps to overcome distractions and also the slumberness of the mind. Thank you, sir. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ashwini. Very nicely explained. We have one more Karika on the same theme of obstacles to meditation. Dr. Sukanya, please.
Thank you, sir. With verse 39, Gaudapadacharya completes the teaching of Ajativada, that is, 4 aspects of negation of the universe. Now, in verse 40 to 42, Nididhyasanam is introduced as a necessary sadhana for assimilation of the teachings, because this teaching is very difficult to grasp unless the mind is well refined. So, the focus is now on Shama. Next, Manonigraha, managing involuntary thoughts through Vedantic meditation, is also called Samadhi Rupa Nididhyasana. The purpose of Nididhyasana, the 4 main obstacles faced during meditation, they are Laya, Vikshepa, Kashaya, and Rasaswada, and the remedies are all detailed in this slide. The second obstacle, Vikshepa, and its remedy is already elaborated in verse 43. Now, in the next slide, Karika 44 is explained. It goes like this. Laye sambhodaye chittam vikshiptam shamayet punaha sakashayam vijaniyat sampraptam na chalaye. Laye chittam sambhodaye. When the mind dozes off to sleep, wake up the mind. Punaha vikshiptam manaha shamaye. When the mind gets restless, again quieten the mind. Sakashayam vijaniyat. Know this state as kashayam. Tam sampraptam manaha na chalayet. Do not disturb this tranquil mind. One should awaken the mind in drowsiness. This is laya. One should quieten the disturbed mind repeatedly. This is vikshepa. In the intermediate state, when the mind is, there are latent desires in the mind, and his mind is not ready for nididhyasana. This is kashaya. Till the latent desires are totally removed, one should not disturb the tranquil mind. This is the essence of the verse. Rasaswada is the 4th obstacle which is discussed in the next verse. Next slide, sir. These 4 major obstacles and the ways to overcome them are outlined in this slide. Laya is the dullness of the mind falling asleep because of rise of tamoguna. No appropriate remedy is suggested by Gaudapada. However, Swamiji gives an explanation. Remove the very cause of sleep, which are Nidra Shesha, lack of adequate sleep, Ajirnam, indigestion, Bahu Ashanam, overeating, and Shrama, excessive physical exertion. These are the general causes which are taken care of according to individual needs. Auto-suggestion is also a remedy telling the mind, this is meditation time, be calm. Vikshepa is the restlessness wandering of the mind, distraction caused due to strong desire for external objects, rise of Rajoguna. Twofold remedy is Abhyasa and Vairagya. Abhyasa is repeatedly reminding the mind, world is only Namarupa, no attachment to the non-existing world, see the world as Mithya, it's a source of sorrow. Kripaya Paraya Vishto Vishidanna Bravet, as in Bhagavad Gita. By constantly remembering the sorrow caused by the external world, detachment happens. Thus, the second obstacle, Vikshepa, is overcome. Now, the next one is Kashaya. Next, please, sir. Kashaya is a stagnant mind, neither dull nor wandering, but it is not available for Vedantic meditation. This happens when there are deep disturbances in the subconscious mind, due to which mind is either overwhelmed or shocked. Remedy suggested by Gaudapada is to remain in Sakshi Bhava, witness of the mind. The disturbances will then surface. This is a shift from Kashaya to Vikshepa, which is then taken care of by Abhyasa and Vairagya as said above. Illustration is a liquor addict may forcibly give up drinking temporarily, but the urge remains deep inside him. Unless the cause is dealt with, effect continues. Rasavarjam rasopyasya param drashtva nivartate. This urge for sense objects deep in the subconscious mind disappears only when the mind is fully stable and the Supreme Atma is realized. Vasanas remain in the mind unless there is something higher to hold on to. This is the subject of the verse 44. Now, let's understand through Bhashya. Next lecture. Through the twofold strategy of remembering Vedantic teaching that the world is only Namarupa, Mithya, a source of sorrow, the mind is turned away through detachment. Laye, Sushupte, when the mind goes to sleep, Leenam Manaha Sambhodaye, the sleeping mind should be awakened through Atma Viveka Darshanena, connecting to Vedantic teaching. Chittam Manaha iti Anya Arthantaram Yojaye. Chittam and Manaha are not different. Therefore, when the mind turns outward, bring it back. Atma Viveka Darshayena Yojaye. With this, the first two obstacles are handled. Now, to deal with the third obstacle, Kashaya, Vikshiptam cha kama bhogeshu shamayet punaha. The mind is either sleeping or wandering. The powerful raga, dvesha in the subconscious mind makes the mind inactive, not available for nididhyasana. So, punaha abhyasato layat sambhotitam. Awaken the mind and turn away from the sense objects. Napi samya apannam. It has not come to Atma. This state is anantarala vastham, intermediary state between Laya Vikshepa and Atma Dhyana. So, Ragam Bija Samyuktam Manaha iti Vijaniya. Raga Vasanas obstruct the mind. Tatapi Yatnataha Samyam Upadaye. Bring that mind to Atma Samstham by Akhandakara Vritti, that is, entertaining Vedantic thoughts like Aham Nityam Shuddham Buddham iti. With the three obstacles handled, the mind is now prepared for Vedantic meditation. So, tam praptam manaha na chalayet. Don't disturb such a tranquil mind. Once the three obstacles are taken care of, the mind is available for nididhyasana. Due to relaxation, the mind enjoys a relaxed state and is happy. This temporary relaxed state of happiness is rasasvada pratibimba ananda, which is temporary and which causes addiction. This is dealt with in the next verse. Now, in conclusion, nididhyasanam is a sadhana to make the mind non-problematic and well-refined. Only such a mind is not allowed towards ahankara, mamakara, raga, dvesha. Therefore, it can absorb the teachings of Mandukya Karika. It's like stirring sugar in milk to get the taste of sweetness. This knowledge leads us to abhayam, that is fearlessness, dukkakshayam, freedom from sorrow, eternal peace, and obstructive knowledge. Hari Om Sir.
Thank you very much, Sukanya. Very nicely explained about the obstacles to meditation which is a very highly quoted part of Mandukya Karika. Meditation is an important topic. In the 6th chapter, Sri Krishna refers to only two of them, Laya, drowsiness, and Vikshepa. And Arjuna asks this question, I'm not able to control my mind. Two more, Kashaya. That means when I am by myself, all negative thoughts can come. Or Rasa Aswada. That means I enjoy that state and it becomes Vishayananda rather than Atmananda. And these are the four obstacles to meditation. As we are coming to the end of the most beautiful Advaita Prakaranam, which is an elaboration of the 12 mantras of the Mandukya Upanishad, which is considered the pinnacle of all Vedanta, we will have a summary of what is this Advaita Prakaranam all about. Swamiji says these 48 Karikas can be divided into 5 topics, 1 and 2. Both these first and 2 Karikas are extremely beautiful. They are introduction. I'm going to tell you about that Akarpanyam. Gaudapadacharya gives a very nice introduction. Like sometimes in the 9th chapter, Sri Krishna will say, I'm going to tell you the greatest secret, the great knowledge. That is how Advaita Prakaranam begins with a great introduction. I'm going to teach you something about that Akarpanyam, that Turiya. Once you get it, Ajati Samatam Gatam, you attain to Purnatvam. That is how he nicely introduces. Then from 3 to 30, that means most of this, he brings the main topic, which is not dealt with anywhere else in Vedanta as intensely as here, on Ajati Vada. That means from Turiyam, nothing is born. Until we come to Mandukya, we say from Brahman comes Akasha, from Akasha, Vayu, Vayu, Agni, Agni, Apa, Apa, Prithvi. So the whole creation has come from Brahman. But here we are going to do Apavada. He says nothing of that sort. Then 31 to 39, most important. He gives you the take-home message of Atma Jnanam in 3 words. Atma Satyanubodha, Asparsha Yoga, and Amani Bhava. And finally, the last 7 Karikas deal with Mano Nigraha, or leading to Nidithyasanam. And finally, the most quoted verse, the 48th verse, that is how this whole chapter concludes. In the introduction, which is very powerful, he says all forms of samsara lead to duality. Even the samsara of a Bhakta and Bhagavan, he strongly criticizes those upasakas. He says, if you are going to be an upasaka, it is going to be still in the form of Dvaita. And wherever there is Dvaita, there is fear, here is Yama Dharmaraja, and so on. Gaudapada then uses that pot example to say how from pot space and total space. That means nothing really is born. So logically, he negates the birth of Jiva. Logically, he negates the birth of the whole creation. Logically, then scriptural negation of Jiva and Jagat using that beautiful pot example, the pot space and total space. How it is only because of the presence of the Upadhi, the body mind, I feel that I am apart. Otherwise, if the Upadhi is negated, then you are one with the tool. There is no sadhana that is required whatsoever. Through various scripturals and through logically, he is able to negate. Once you get this knowledge, this is possible through mind training, through Mano Nigraha, to get that kind of mind, which is now able to absorb that Vedantic teaching. And then when you have such a pure mind, you have Amani Bhava, because now you know you are Atma, and the mind now becomes purified by this Brahma Jnana. The mind now becomes a no mind. The mind cannot affect me, and such a person is unaffected. Asparsha Yogo Vainama. So these are the important ideas that have been brought. And finally, the same topic that we are studying about, Nidithyasanam, the various methods of Nidithyasanam. In the next class, I will do a small conclusion of the Vaitatya Prakaranam. how to see the whole world as unreal. We will conclude today's class. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Neeta, please.
Thank you, sir. Our pranams to Swami Paramathananda ji, Swami Anubhavananda ji, Swami Chidananda ji, Swami Shankara Bharati ji, and to all our gurus and the Guru Parampara. Immense gratitude to our teacher, Dr. Hegde, who handholds us through these Vedantic studies. It's so hard to have direct contact with our gurus in today's setup. And he has been a great link for allowing us to follow this Guru Parampara. He has nurtured us in all aspects of spiritual growth, clearing our minutest doubts to all our mega doubts. You know, in some ways, he has even supported us to internalize these learnings as he boosts this unique way of learning and teaching. He's the perfect role model for us. We are truly grateful, sir. Thanks to all the speakers of the day. And thank you to all our listeners. Our next premiere is Gita session 51 on Monday, the 4th of November. Let us conclude with the prayers. Please chant along. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Harihi Om.